Good afternoon. Welcome, everyone. Today, we're very excited. We have a wonderful presentation. It's how podcasters can activate audience stickiness with real voice interactions. We have Simon Dunlop with Streamatic. And Simon, for those that may not be familiar with you or what's going on, maybe you can just catch them up real quick, and then we can go ahead and kick off with the presentation.
Jared, definitely. Well, first of all, thanks a lot for having me on. It's a real privilege, and it's great to get the opportunity to speak about what we're up to. So I've been, I'm a serial entrepreneur, I guess is the best way to describe it. And for the last 6 years, we've been together with my partners in the team. We've been working on Instramatic, and more recently, we've been finding great applications for it in the podcasting space. So. Which is what I'm going to speak with you and your audience about today. So I guess without further ado, I'll get stuck in. And so I mean, we're really Instramatic it's a voice marketing platform, and we enable direct communication between brands and consumers, like across all of their existing touch points. So wherever we see a touch point between a brand and a consumer, we look for a way to voice enable it. And we started a few years back with audio advertising, where we make a regular audio ad interactive, so that consumers can have a spoken dialogue with the brand when they hear an ad. So instead of it being one to just a linear experience, it becomes a two-way interactive experience. And I'm going to give you some examples about all of this, and especially within the context of podcasting a bit later, but also. Customer and audience experiences, such as feedback or customer service reviews, and some other great sort of products that we have up our sleeve and will be releasing over the next months. And as we've sort of looked at podcasts and how voice interactivity can help to improve and shape that experience, we feel that there is really so much more that can be achieved with voice compared to text, or clicking, and there are obvious reasons for that. So the majority of podcast listening happens on mobile, and so you have to think, how can you engage your audience in that mobile environment where they don't have a keyboard or a big keyboard, comfortable keyboard in front of them, or a big screen, and they are, they're really on the go. And voice is perfect. It's the perfect interface for that. So if people are on the go, or they may not have a screen in front of them, the phone may be in their pocket, they're driving, or they're in the gym, then how do you engage them in that environment? And really, voice is the way that happens. And we can already see that consumer behavior has shifted to voice, and voice it's the easiest way to share details and nuances, especially when you're on your phone and you're on the go. We can see that more than half of Google searches on mobile are now executed with voice. And when you combine that with the adoption of audio messaging in chat apps such as WhatsApp, or if you're sending a message, I know my daughter, my 9-year-old daughter, she never texts anymore. She's always sending audio messages. So I think when you take these two behaviors, then voice enabling across all of these, all mediums, from audio to video games, and it clearly makes sense to find a way to incorporate this into any customer experience as far as possible. So we've seen that. Interestingly, for brands, what happens when people speak is they tend to do so from the heart, and also to follow through with their intentions. So by engaging people in a conversation, you can get a lot more, far more qualitative experience from them. And so I can sort of come on and talk about some of our products at this point. And we've really been leveraging these behavioral trends to introduce a product which we call Speaky. And a Speaky is a way for customers and listeners to give spoken feedback directly to a business or a creator or a podcaster. And this is done very simply by clicking a link or scanning a QR code. And then you can say exactly what's on your mind, and this will feed back directly to the creator. So from a podcaster's point of view, this is a great way to sort of close the loop with their audience and move from this one-to-many broadcast experience towards a two-way interaction where they can incorporate the listener's views into the programming more directly and build a more interactive community. And then from the listener's point of view, it's fun, it's empowering. They can feel that they're participating in a show and have their voice heard, share what's on their mind, or respond to a particular question posed by your podcast host. And I'm going to play a demo. I'll show a demo now how this works. So for example, here, and I have to switch between screens, but you would see a link, for example, that could be placed in show notes. It could be in social media. Could be on your website. Could be QR code displayed directly on the podcast. And simply by clicking it, you would then be taken to a voice landing like this, where with a single click, you can now provide some feedback. Hey, this is Simon. I'd love to hear some content on the podcast on how to scale my audience. Boom. Submit. Now you choose whether it's attributable or non-attributable, and then that goes straight back to the creator, who can then see what's been said through a dashboard and hear the feedback. So really simple. The integration is set up almost immediately, and you can vary the kind of questions you're asking on the fly. So this can change from one podcast session to one episode to another. And so this is now live. We're already running it with a few podcasts, but it's still early days. We launched this back at the end of last year. And we're live now with a few. We have Will Kane podcast up and coming, and several others in pipeline. So that's one of the products that I think can be particularly interesting, where you hear what your audience is saying, and that can be effectively in real time. I guess we're going to pick up Q&A towards the end, because I think this is normally where I ask if everyone gets it and if there are any questions, but let's field questions towards the end. So before we launched Speaky, we started out by voice enabling audio ads and turning audio ads from one-way linear ad experience into a two-way interactive voice experience. We launched with Pandora a couple of years ago, and we published many case studies. And actually last year we published the first industry white paper on voice advertising, and it's been scaling up very significantly and very sort of satisfyingly over the last couple of years in the US. And what a voice ad enables you to do is really to have a direct spoken dialogue between a brand and a consumer on audio streaming and video streaming apps. And so in the context of a podcast, this could be a pre-roll ad that would be that would play. And what an ad sounds like, or the structure of an ad, is that instead of there being, say, a 30-second or 20-second linear ad spot, it would be more like an 8-second tease. Then with a microphone opening, we listen for a response, and then depending on how the person has responded, the creative then is adapted accordingly. So an example of that could be, say you're listening to Pandora or iHeart Music, you hear an ad come up, and the ad might say, hey, this is Simon's Coffee. How would you like to have a hot cup of coffee waiting for you the next time you visit? And then we open a microphone and we listen for the response. And the response might be, man, I gave up coffee a year ago. Stop bothering me. In which case, it's instead of it being this 30-second spot, it's been a very short experience. But on the back end, we've learned that that listener doesn't like coffee. The next time we engage, the message could say, or the ad could say, hey, this is Simon's Coffee again. Actually, we have some great tea or milkshakes. And how would you like to try one of those instead? So it allows brands to develop a story arc with the customer. And it's very empowering for the listener, because the listener, if they don't want to unpack the ad, they don't have to, they can skip it. And if they are interested, then they can unpack it, and there's a call to action that's then embedded. So it could then lead to a landing page, web landing with a promo on it. It could open a map, show you directions to a store. It could open a phone number to call a customer service agent. So there are pretty much any call to action you can imagine on a mobile device, we can embed there. And actually, I'll play an example here, just so we can see and hear what it sounds like.
Spaghetti sauce, gravy, permanent marker.
Tide to Go wants to know, what's the dirtiest word you can think of?
Pizza grease.
At the tone, just tell us the dirtiest dirty word you know. Go ahead, say it out loud.
How about lipstick?
Well, yes, that is a pretty dirty word. Good work. Luckily, Tide to Go Instant Stain Remover offers on-the-go protection against the dirtiest of dirty. I'm opening a page with an exclusive offer now, you maestro of muck. Go ahead, say it out loud. Can't think of one right now? Apparently you've never eaten red sauce while wearing white. We can try again when you're ready to talk dirty. Go ahead, say it out loud.
I don't know, bullshit?
That's what you might say after you stain your lucky shirt, but not quite what we were looking for. Luckily, Tide to Go Instant Stain Remover offers on-the-go protection against the dirtiest dirt. I'm opening a page with an exclusive offer now, you filthy animal.
So that gives you some examples of the different directions that you can take the story in. And it feels sort of fun, interactive. It's a really lean-in experience. And we see the results kind of speak for themselves. One second. In terms of engagement, so where you would see typically an ad, digital ad engagement would be less than 1%. We see engagement with voice ads around the 10% level. Recall rates are much higher, and of course you have no accidental or fraudulent clicks. It also, when we've done brand uplift studies, intent to purchase goes way up. And it's just an all-around much better experience. And it also enables you to, as an advertiser, to work in an audio environment on a CPE basis rather than on a CPM basis, because you can measure ROI on your ad spend. So it's a really useful and an engaging format. And I think really leverages the voice boom that we're seeing, and I think works particularly well for a podcast environment where you can put it pre-roll. So generally across, we're starting to see voice features, interactive voice features, pop up across different mediums. We just saw iHeart have just released a feature they call Talkback, which allows listeners to participate with their favorite shows directly. And there've been examples of podcasts that have used an audio message functionality on a website to gather some feedback. But we've taken what we've done with Speaky and with voice ads is really to take a range of experiences that are much more enhanced using voice and allow people to engage when otherwise they either wouldn't be able to or might not be interested to. I think that's where I'm going to call stop on the slide in the presentation part of this session, and open it up and see if there are any questions from the audience.
I'm just going to leave the screen up just for a little bit longer, Simon. If anybody wants to send you an email and also message you on social, I'm going to copy your email into the chat so people have that as well.
Thanks, Jared.
Yeah, of course. And I had a couple questions. One it was the audio recording. You mentioned you can make it attributable or not, and I was wondering what that meant.
Well, what that means is if somebody chooses to leave their name, so type in the name or an
Right.
email address, phone number, so that you can then get in touch with them, or in the case where it's where it's anonymous. And actually, you can choose whether you want to make it that mandatory or not. So you might say, listen, we're not going to take any anonymous tips or any anonymous feedback. But in some cases, you might be getting more interesting or broader feedback if you allow people to provide anonymous commentary.
Okay. And I thought it was interesting with the Tide ad example that you showed, how someone could record a response, and then there was basically like a real-time answer to that response. So I was kind of curious about that. Is that how that works? Like they say, okay, they threw out a word like pizza stain, or even there was a different word, and they're like, hey, that's not what we had in mind. I thought that was kind of funny, but just interesting. I was curious about how that works.
Yeah, so the way that it works is that we, when the ad is made, we pre-record a number of responses, and then we're listening for certain responses, and depending on what the listener has said, that then in real time, matches to a response, and that's the technology on our side that's able to do that. So we have an AI core, voice AI core, which is in real time with very low latency, recognizing what's being said, and then matching it to the creative. And so that can that can be as varied as you want, or as the advertiser wants. So it could be, here you're looking for it. They kind of work best when there's a bit of humor involved. But you could imagine a scenario where you're a travel company and you say, hey, it's holidays are coming up. Where do you want to go? And somebody says, I want to go skiing, or I want to go to the beach. And then depending on what that's been, what the answer is, then you can match that to creative accordingly. And I think what's also very exciting here is to be able to build the story arc over multiple engagements. So somebody says, hey, I want to go skiing. And then you're like, well, we've got some great holidays to go skiing. And the next time you engage with that person, you can say, hey, that ski trip, is coming up. Have you thought about insurance, or what about flights? Or so it can be very personalized, and it's completely unique in an audio environment to be able to do that.
Yeah, that's really cool. I actually had a message here from Steve. Steve says, interesting. And I agree. It is interesting. It's pretty cool that we're now entering into this chapter of podcasting where we have these capabilities.
I think it could also just think, Jared, it lends itself to, many podcast hosts actually describing, say, a sponsor. So we haven't done this, but I think this would be a great use case, would be to say, hey, we have a number of sponsors. Would you like to hear about insurance, healthy eating, or or a new car. You say, hey, I'm in the market for a new car. And it's like, well, okay, great. Well, we have Audi as a sponsor, or whatever the brand is. So that I think that takes you away from that experience sometimes where you have a few minutes which can be dedicated to all of the sponsors at the beginning of a podcast, to maybe focus on just the ones that your audience are particularly interested in.
Absolutely. Well, Simon, I really appreciate this demonstration and this example, and just kind of sharing some of the neat technology that's going on and opportunities that are available. While we don't have an influx of questions, I was just wondering if you maybe have some final thoughts or anything you could share with us in closing.
Yeah, I would just say, like, if any of your audience want to reach out, we're more than happy to work on something together with them. And
Sure.
These are very exciting times for voice technology.
Oh, absolutely. And so the best way to do that, I believe, is through your email. You have simon@instramatic.com. We have that on the screen. And of course, your social is SJC Dunlop, where people can connect with you. I'm assuming that's Twitter and Instagram.
Absolutely.
Wonderful. Well, Simon, we are grateful for your time and certainly appreciate the demo, and definitely look forward to learning more. And Steve says, thanks for the presentation. And I agree with him. So
thanks,
thank you,
everyone.
Simon.
Great. Have a great day. Bye.